Some have described the campaigns especially as some that, witnessed unprecedented violence. We saw yourself as well with a neck brace. You had been injured. And there are those who point an accusing finger. Of course, there was finger pointing. You accused one of the opponents. The opponent said it was being stage managed by yourselves to earn those sympathy votes. What would you say about the violence that was witnessed?
My opponent said they didn't beat me enough to warrant a neck brace, and that was the most unfortunate thing. That yes, they said they beat me, but not enough to warrant some of the remedial action that was taken. It was quite unfortunate, the violence that was witnessed, but I would also like to say that the violence was over-dramatized. I was attacked only twice during 1.5 months of campaigns, and I think
usually that doesn't happen, so twice is significant. Even once would be significant.
By our own low Kenyan political standards, you would even argue that twice is normal in campaigns. There should be 0 instances of violence. That is why we all sign a code of conduct as candidates to ensure that we do not advocate or promote violence. But yes, there were 2 instances where I was directly attacked, and these 2 instances happened in the same place, a place called Kochia, where one of the candidates was coming from. This is all now water under the bridge. We have spoken with each other, we have congratulated each other, and we have agreed to join hands to work together for the benefit of Homaby County. Because politics should not mean that people should kill each other. It is not, it is not a matter of life and death. At the end of the day, after 1.5 months, you all come back, you're all citizens of the county, and you all have a responsibility as leaders to join hands and develop the county.
One would argue you're very diplomatic with your answers, because on one hand, first ODM as a party had its already image begin to be tainted with the botched elections in Kasarani. Then for your particular case, again, we saw the violence and disruption that happened, no nominations. And then to the campaign level, you say it's almost normal, but it is not. We have not witnessed recently where other candidates have been injured, even in the general elections and the like. So to say that yes, you've congratulated each other and have moved on is not sufficient for the people, especially in Homaby, and for the country at large, to have seen that play out in the political arena. A trait and a trend that is concerning to all. Isn't there more to say to what happened, especially as ODM as a party, and the actions you've taken after that to ensure we don't see these things continue?
The difference between my by-election and the other general elections is that when you have a general election, you've got more than 1,000 people competing, and the attention of the nation is split across the thousands of people who are competing. When you have a by-election at a county similar to the one I've just gone through, all the focus of the country is in that by-election. And as a result, things can get over-dramatized and things can get hyped up and can get sensationalized.
So you're saying there was violence because all the attention of the country was on Homaby?
I think the few instances where there could have been confrontation were blown out of proportion, because we didn't have a lot of other things that were competing for the attention of the media and the attention of the public. But that is not to say that I condone violence. If you recall that campaign, you cannot point a single instance where I, as a candidate, was accused of violence. In fact, I was the one on the defensive all the time.
You'll not be accused of violence, but you know where the finger is pointed, and we've read a few reports on the same. Your brother, Kajwang, Raraka Member of Parliament, it is alleged that at the nominations, it is his bodyguards that fired in the air to disrupt the exercise. Because then they wanted what then eventually happened, you getting a direct nomination to take place.
That is not correct. I was present at the venue, and the person who fired in the air did that to protect us from people who are out to attack us. The tent under which we were sitting...
Which people? Because the men in black had been spotted who have been linked to ODM and who had been there before the nomination exercise. So who are these other people that were attacking?
Even if they were linked to ODM, that was a gathering of ODM people. It was not a gathering of Moses Kajwang supporters. So the action that was taken was to protect us against attack. Remember, there were 8 members.
So they did shoot?
there were 8 members of ODM who were going for the same position. So it cannot be said that that was a Moses Kajwang affair. It could have been any of the 8. But that was also very unfortunate.
Moses Kajwang's candidature at the time, one would argue?
No, that could not be correct, because there were 8 other candidates present there. And all these 8 candidates had canvassed, they had spoken with delegates, and they obviously had their supporters there. So it could not be that Moses Kajwang's supporters would be the ones who would outrun everybody. Now, let me comment on TJ Kajwang's participation in the election. He did so by his own right, because 1, is my brother, and I appointed him my campaign manager. Number 2, he also comes from Homaby County, and he's got a right, to come back to Homaby County and to campaign. He cannot vie for a position because he already has a position in Nairobi. So his participation and involvement in my campaign was perfectly in order, and it was by right. I think any attribution of violence or provocation on his part is completely unfounded, because all the time I was being stoned, I was with him, and he was not stoning anybody.